The San Francisco School cultivates and celebrates the intellectual, imaginative, and humanitarian promise of each student in a community that practices mutual respect, embraces diversity, and inspires a passion for learning.
Good morning. Welcome. Thank you for spending your morning with us. My name is Toni Russell. I'm the Director of Enrollment Management here at the San Francisco School. I originally started my journey here 16 years ago as a teacher, but this is my first year in my new role. I'm also a parent of a third grader here at the school who began when he was in preschool. So kind of here is the plan for the session this morning. We'll give you a brief overview of the school, and then we will turn it over to Juna McDade, who is our head of school, who will tell you more about our school's mission and our school community. After that, you'll hear from Stuart and Laura, our lower school head and preschool head. And they'll talk to you a little bit more about our school's educational philosophy. And then we'll wrap it up with some next steps for the admissions process, and then have some time at the end of the session for more Q&A. So just a little bit about the San Francisco School. We were founded in 1966 by a group of families and teachers. We were originally a Montessori preschool. The school has grown over the years and has always been in the Portola neighborhood. And now we have 280 students in preschool through 8th grade. In terms of the structure of the program, we have 2 classrooms, one for preschool 3 and one for preschool 4 that include approximately 20 to 24 students and a team of 3 teachers. Our preschool 4 group moves into our kindergarten classroom, which has 2 head teachers with about 24 students. Starting in preschool 3, students have specialist teachers in Spanish and music each week. And in the subsequent years, we add in health and wellness, art, STEAM, campus stewardship, and more. We end up with the classes in elementary school of about 22 students per grade, and then grow again between 5th and 6th grade, adding a number of new students coming from schools all over the city. As you get to know us, we hope that you see more of the hallmarks of our program, a curriculum that instills a love of learning, a warm, welcoming community, and a committed group of teachers, a place that values diversity with a very rich program, including standout programs in music, art, and in Spanish. And one-of-a-kind campus with kids can be where the outside can be explored. At this point, I'll turn it over to Juna McDade, our head of school.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us today. I am thrilled to welcome you here as head of school and look forward to meeting you in person. I am also the parent of a current 5th grader. I am so excited that my family and I get to be at a school where my family's values are closely aligned with the schools in a city that we love. They're a school that is mission-centered with a strong strategic vision and a vibrant community. Your voice matters from day one. The founding of the school, as you heard from Toni, was built upon a shared responsibility between families and staff to build and sustain a culture of inclusion and respect. Your children will also not want to leave school because they love it so much. I always chuckle when I see parents waiting by the gate because their children wanted just one more minute. That usually stretches into about 10. Our mission is to cultivate and celebrate the intellectual, imaginative, and humanitarian promise of every student. The number 1 commendation for us by the California Association of Independent Schools accrediting body is that we are a mission-driven school. We take a lot of pride in this recognition that our compass is strong and unwavering. So we engage our students in authentic learning that is both relevant and significant to them. Our teachers model what it means to be curious and creative because they are still energized by discovery themselves. Our students want to learn for learning's sake and will often direct the inquiry in the classroom. So I was in a preschool classroom and put into practice what our teachers recommend. So instead of saying, good job, and moving on, I stopped and asked a student about their drawing. And while I originally only saw scribbles, the student explained in very great detail that it was a maze and showed me how to work my way through it. I was blown away by the level of specificity of their explanation and imagination. And I'm so glad that I stopped to actually have a conversation about what I thought I was seeing. So we have the flexibility in our classroom to allow for sparks of interest to make these moments meaningful, and the teaching staff who allow the learning journey to happen. Our mission also addresses how we engage with one another. So practicing mutual respect requires trust. Embracing diversity requires commitment, and both are usually unscripted. But the hallmark of a strong community is one in which we can be vulnerable with one another and authentic to who we are. We practice mutual respect and embrace diversity at all levels of our school. Our Board Equity and Belonging Committee guides the strategic vision of diversity, equity, inclusion, justice, and belonging for our community. Our Committee on Trustees has an inclusive process to ensure our board reflects the diversity of our community. We also employ recruitment and retention practices to ensure inclusivity and minimize bias, and use qualitative and quantitative data to assess the experiences of our students, staff, and families to make data-informed decisions. So whether in the boardroom, in the classroom, or at a community event, we practice equity and inclusion. We are also a school that values strategic planning, and we are currently in the middle of a strategic planning process where all constituents this year are being asked for their perspective on the school so that we can then launch a new strategic plan next fall. Our process is always inclusive of all community members when developing our strategic plans, and we plan to strengthen our community in the process. As with all of our plans, we will ensure a focus on supporting the wonderful people who make up our community, our thoughtful programs that bring so much joy to our students, and our unique footprint with places like the Adventure Playground and in a vibrant neighborhood like the Portola District. Our mission and strategic plan may feel high level at this point, and you may just be wondering what you can expect from our community on a day-to-day basis. SFS essentially is a village in an urban setting. While we are in the city, walking through our Gavin Street gates transports you into our outdoor spaces and Adventure Playground. Our students spend just as much time outside as in, and on many days, actually more time outside than in. For those of you newer to the Bay Area, we are a close-knit, down-to-earth community that can provide authentic connections and support without pretense. For the group of you who are native to the Bay Area, we welcome the local connections and historical knowledge that you can bring. Then all of us come together to bring our own uniqueness, and we celebrate our differences that add value to our collective community. So joining us comes with strong partnerships with our staff and fellow families, where we all play an important role in helping our children discover who they are, while nurturing a sense of responsibility to others. And that's the humanitarian promise of our mission. My hope is that our mission and community values align with yours, and we look forward to getting to know you throughout the admissions process. So now I will pass it over to Stuart Dorsey, head of lower school, and Laura Bridges Pereira, also known as LBP, who is our head of preschool and director of special programs, to talk more about the day-to-day.
Hello, everyone. I'm Stuart Dorsey. Like Gina said, I'm the head of lower school. It's my 14th year at the school. And I also wear the parent hat here as well. I've got a 5th grader and a 4-year-old in preschool.
Hi, I'm LBP. This is my 2nd year at the San Francisco School and my 22nd year as an educator. I don't wear a parent hat, but my son works at Extended Day here in the after school program. So that's pretty a monumentous thing to go through in life, to have your child work for you. And my other son is in high school.
So Laura and I, like Gina said, are going to talk a little bit more about the educational philosophy and what guides the work that happens for teaching and learning in the classroom. And we believe learning happens best when we have what we call the 5 C's, which are curiosity, challenge, compassion, collaboration, and courage. And so Laura and I are going to go through those 5 C's and try to bring them to life a little bit and tell you what they look like here at SFS. To start with, curiosity. So like in our mission, we talk about inspires a passion for learning. And to be honest, we know kids come to us naturally curious. And one of our most precious jobs is to foster and sustain that curiosity because it's such a precious resource. Too often in schools, very well-meaning in the interest of teaching and learning, that curiosity is squashed. And so, really, as we set up our learning program, one of the pieces we want to focus on is how to maintain that curiosity. Having a 4-year-old at home, I know some of you might know very well just how naturally curious little children can be, and you might wish for a little bit less curiosity when they're asking why and why and why. But we really want to meet the children where they are and celebrate that curiosity. And for us, that starts with the adults. Like Gina said, this is a teaching team that is naturally curious as well and open to exploring and learning to develop their craft and to learn more about students as well. So we really want to model that curiosity for our students. What it looks like in preschool, first and foremost, is a lot of play, a lot of unstructured playtime. Maria Montessori talks about the play is the work of the child, and that is something that we really believe. So our preschoolers and kindergartners have at least 3 or 4 times outdoors each day to practice that natural curiosity outdoors, interacting with their peers in an unstructured way. That recess actually continues all the way through middle school as well, and sometimes our 8th graders are surprised to find out there won't be recess when they head off to high school, but you can still see our students in middle school swinging on the swings, playing tag or hide and seek in the adventure playground. And we really believe that play is precious and an important component to curiosity. Moving on from there, what curiosity looks like is our Sound of the Week program. It's the way we introduce phonemic awareness at the beginning of our students' time here. Each week there is a different sound. So this week the sound for the preschool 4s is eh. And the students, therefore, their first sort of homework assignment is to bring in something from home with the sound eh in it. So my child brought in this week a jellyfish stuffed animal, but I saw some eggs coming through as well. What this does for us is it bridges the connection. It bridges the home school connection. And the students understand that the things they're learning here at school about sounds and letters and what sounds do letters make are relevant out in the world in their life at home and beyond. It also allows them to take something that's special for them and bring it into school. We know that when students can bring in important pieces about themselves and bring that to their learning, that's when it can really stick. So that Sound of the Week is our first kind of entree into that academic learning and is an example of how we try to meet the students where they are and celebrate that curiosity. From there, as the years go on, another hallmark of our program is interdisciplinary and project-based learning. So for example, in 2nd grade, our students learn about birds. This is part of their science program, but it's also part of their creative writing program, and they're writing stories inspired by a bird. It's part of their art project as well. And you can see actually behind me that they do a painting of a bird, of a native California bird. They also design scale models of those birds and bring in math and measure out the wingspan of a California condor or a Anna's hummingbird and understand the different scales of the birds that exist in our state. So when students can have those different avenues into the same topic, so whether it's art or music and they're composing songs inspired by their birds or creating dances inspired by bird behavior, when they have multiple avenues to access the content, that's when we really feel like we can match a child's natural curiosity and sustain that. Ultimately, what we hope is that our students leave here still curious, still excited to learn. And that's the feedback we get from our students from their teachers about our alumni when they're in high school, that they're the ones that ask good questions, that they're the ones that stick around because they're inspired and they're curious and they want to learn more about the topic, not just to get a good grade, but because they naturally are curious. We want our students leaving here not burnt out on learning, but excited to continue and progress and learn more. So that's just a little bit about curiosity, and Laura will take the next one.
The next one I'm going to talk about is courage. And it really does take courage to learn. And we know that here at the San Francisco School. Playing and learning involve taking risk and making mistakes. Then those things lead to better understanding and to resilience, or otherwise known as grit. We really embrace these mistakes as opportunities for children to learn, because we know that that is one of the most important opportunities for students to grow into self-advocates, knowing how they learn as a student, and to advocate for others, and also to remain engaged. They need that courage and those opportunities for risk to keep learning in the world that we have here at school. In preschool, you might be wondering, well, what does courage look like in preschool? And it might be something as simple as making a new friend, or learning the new routines at the beginning of the year. A lot of preschoolers exercise their courage when they're participating and sharing in morning circle, when they bring in their sound of the week. Perhaps it's just trying out a new activity. Teachers rotate new activities in. Right now, it might be trying the water droppers with the red and the green dye and seeing how they work on the sponge, even though you had never done that activity before. That takes courage. Or going across the monkey bars for the first time, or up the climbing wall. In kindergarten, these look a little bit different. It's when students start to have a lot of choice in what their academic work. So it might be choosing your writing topic, or choosing a book to read. Kindergartners also choose their own activists to research about and learn about. So there are also activities to stretch their courage in the adventure playground when they have free play. It might be courage when they try something in their STEAM class, a challenge to create a structure that doesn't quite hold up, and they have to have the courage to try again and think about this project and challenge in a new way. Also, we really see a lot of courage when the kindergartners get to practice being leaders when they're at pre-K and kindergarten combined singing time at the end of the school day. But the real place that I think that we see courage the most, and where we really start to cultivate this conflict resolution, is in what we call our peace process in preschool, kindergarten, and all throughout the rest of their time here at San Francisco School. We introduced this peace process in preschool, and students learn to manage disagreements with classmates, and that's a hard thing to do. They begin by taking a deep breath and pausing, and then maybe they go take a sip of water before they try to work through the conversation with the classmate. And it's essential that they have their mind calm and their body calm before they proceed. But resolving these issues and listening to a classmate and being willing to maybe compromise take a lot of courage for a young child. So we really start to cultivate this right from the very beginning. I'm going to pass it to Stuart to talk about compassion. They go really hand in hand.
Yes, thanks, Laura. So compassion obviously is another component to the peace process as well, but it shows up a lot of other places, and a lot of what we call sort of the pro-social or proactive pieces to the program as well, not just dealing with conflict, but trying to create a positive community. So one example of that is the kindness chain. So in preschool, if someone does something kind for me, there's a time each week that I can say, I'd like to add Laura to the kindness chain, because when I bumped my knee, she went and got me an ice pack, and that really helped me feel better. If I nominate Laura on the kindness chain, we'll write her name on a little piece of paper, staple it on, and by the end of the year, we've got a chain of all of these different kind acts that people in our community have done for one another. And it's a kind of physical manifestation of understanding that little acts of kindness spread out over the course of a whole school year can really make a big difference in a community. So we try to celebrate those pro-social pieces as much as possible in terms of fostering that community. Moving on in the years, one of our first writing assignments for the first grade is students writing letters, thank you letters, to different staff members at school. So I've got some letters here that students dropped off to me last week. Dear Stuart, thank you for running all of the town meetings. I've noticed you're generous with quiet reminders, which is actually a way of asking the students to be quiet during the meetings. And it says, without you, there would be no elementary town meeting. Sincerely, Soham. So we have the students writing thank you notes and using their writing skills to demonstrate that compassion here at school as well. Moving on into fifth grade, our students do a week-long program through what's called the Mosaic Project, which is a nonprofit organization here in the Bay Area. They do a week-long sleepaway camp, which is sort of training on Peace Process 2.0. Learning about conflict resolution, how to embrace difference, the distinction between being assertive versus aggressive versus passive, and getting practice actually with being assertive in terms of solving problems and advocating for themselves. And then those students in fifth grade come back and become the leaders of our kind of conflict resolution program for lower school throughout the rest of the school year. As we move on into 8th grade, our culminating class trip is a week-long travel experience to Alabama, where the students learn about the civil rights movement firsthand, visiting important sites and meeting important people who were involved in the civil rights movement, and understanding, what we call sort of our social justice lens, the fact that students were a big component of the civil rights movement, and really kind of how to manifest that compassion through action and activism. So that was compassion. And I think Laura next will talk about collaboration.
Yes, I love talking about collaboration. I think it really feeds into the other C's. That's sort of the backbone of where compassion and courage and all those challenge can take place. But so there is really purposeful modeling here and instruction to guide children to understanding what really is the importance of collaboration and what positive collaboration looks like. So students and teachers work together at the start of each year to create what we would think of as classroom rules, but we call them usually agreements. And you think, well, how do you get a preschooler to create a list of rules? But it's more in preschool like a list of brainstorming, yes, we can, or no, we can't, and how they can play in their yard space outside. We also see children learning to collaborate in preschool. When they start in preschool 3, a lot of times they're playing parallel to each other, and that starts to really grow into imaginative games and scenarios that require collaboration. So they might need someone to work the cash register while another, child is working to prepare fruit in their imaginary restaurant. And we really value playtime so that those kinds of collaborations can take place, because play really is the work of children. We do a lot of collaborative art projects in preschool, so students see that working together is what brings this beautiful decoration to their classroom and makes something that looks like pieces but then becomes a whole. In health and wellness, which we start with preschool 4, we see students working together to collaborate with games that can function with everybody participating together. So that might be a challenge or a competition, but that encourages everyone to collaborate to work together. Preschool students have music 2 times a week, so they collaborate together through body movement and music to make ensembles and to make songs work and to work with each other and play. They do a lot of construction on the yard, making crate and board structures and collaborating together with that to carry things and to transport stuff and to decide what to build. And then they have jobs starting early on in the community. In kindergarten and 1st grade, there's milk pour and bread passer, lunch server. So students really seeing that they're part of a community and they're collaborating to make processes throughout the day work. Middle school students do a wonderful fair during Halloween time, a Halloween carnival that they put together for the younger students. And this is really a really great moment of seeing middle school students collaborate together, not only to create fun, but all the organization and the planning that goes into that ahead of time. Those are just a few ways that collaboration is seen on campus. Stuart's going to talk about challenge now.
All right. So the last C is challenge, like Laura said. And I think one way that we like to highlight that is our math program. Math is a place where we have a lot of kind of informal ways for challenge of having must-do problems and may-do problems. So for homework, the students might have, here's the 4 questions that they need to answer that are must-do, and then some choice to opt into additional challenges that are may-do problems. By 7th and 8th grade, we've made the determination not to track for math and have sort of an advanced math class. All of our math program is advanced, and our kids are prepared for high school to do very well. And we know that some students are ready for more. And so rather than have kind of a formalized tracking where there's an advanced math class, we have a math seminar that about half of our students will opt into if they're interested in more math, that will cover the concepts of algebra and get them ready for that for high school. But it's an important piece for us that is a choice that the students are making, that they're opting into. We find that challenge, when it's combined with choice, is really when it's authentic. And it's not just about kind of making some achievement, but really is about that natural curiosity going back to the beginning for us. Also, in terms of our math program, we use a program called Contexts for Learning, which places the mathematical concepts in real world problems. And I think that's a really important piece for us in terms of our math philosophy, is that it's not just about memorizing your way through math. We know that at some point the math is going to get too complicated, and all that memorization that they might have done is not going to be the skill they need really what they need is that skill of problem solving and saying, how can I take what I already know to solve a new problem that I don't know yet? And so we take that through the Context for Learning program based in kind of real world problems, whether it's a mother hen keeping track of her chicks, or students running a Rubik's Cube business and understanding what size shipping containers they need to ship their Rubik's Cubes. They're constantly thinking about the mathematical concepts in real world situations and using the concepts that they've learned to solve those problems.
It's our desire to partner with you all. And this is a big decision. And then we really want to partner with you if you should decide to join the San Francisco school community. It is truly a small community in a big city where your children will be known and they will be celebrated.
All right. Now, while we still have a few minutes with LBP, Juna, and Stuart, we would like to open it up for questions specifically around the program or the educational philosophy, and I will be on to continue to present after they're done to answer questions specifically about the admissions process. So if you have
high school, we call it high school guidance, not placement, in the sense that we're not really placing students, but we are helping them through that process. The emphasis is on finding the right fit for each child, as opposed to being a feeder for one school or one type of school. So our 34 eighth graders or 36 eighth graders will go to 12 to 14 different high schools, really based off the right fit for them. We try to push off that high school conversation as much as possible, and let them just be middle schoolers and enjoy their experience here, and pick it up kind of late in the spring of 7th grade. We have Ellen Phi, who works in admissions and also in the high school guidance realm, works with students and families starting at the end of the 7th grade year, talking about the lay of the land and what the different high school options are. We bring back alumni as well who talk about their experience. Ellen meets with families over the summer to start kind of helping them craft a list and understand what their options are and what their goals are for the high school process. And then has a pretty intensive program that she works on with families throughout the fall, when it really is the busiest time. We have a high school seminar that meets every week, where Ellen is working with students, whether it's on essays, mock interviews, managing all of those kind of different pieces of the process, and then also working kind of with families throughout that time as well. So I think our students get the feedback we get is that they feel very supported through that process. We really try to help manage those different logistics and support them with that. But again, I think one of the big emphases for us is really working with students to find the match and not just kind of going to wherever the natural place is, but really having that conversation with the student about what their goals are for the high school experience, what's the right environment for them. Some of them will say, I want something similar to SFS. And in that case, they'll be looking at the independent schools, independent high schools. But some of them know they want something very different and they want a big school with a football team and all sorts of things. And then they'll be looking at parochial and public schools. So
algebraic thinking and the notion of algorithms is introduced very, very early on, actually, in the earliest grades. And then that kind of thinking loops through all of our grades. When they get to middle school, so 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, they are more formally introduced to algebraic topics. So all of our students get some level of algebra. And then for the students who take seminar, by the end of their 8th grade, they've basically covered the Algebra 1 topics. And so, algebra is really interesting because it requires a lot of abstract thinking. And if you work with middle schoolers, you know that concrete thinking is much more in line with their brain development. And so, we're mindful of where the students are in terms of their development, but we also set them up for being able to tackle math problems, even the ones that they've never seen before. We give them skills so that they can enter into figuring out math problems and thinking through it. As Stuart mentioned earlier when he was talking about our math program, it really is about how to think about math And so our students actually, what we hear back from our alums is that they feel very prepared for math because they don't ever really feel stumped. They always find some entry point into math problems, and then they have confidence around being able to at least start working through problems and trying to figure it out for themselves. Use a ABC structure, but we try to emphasize the process. A lot of our teachers use rubrics. There's a lot of formative assessments as well along the way, not just summative assessments. We do a lot of projects. And so, there are a lot of different ways that we are assessing students. A lot of presentations, public speaking, things like that.
Stuart, do you want to kind of speak to the grading structure for elementary?
Sure. Yeah. So and kind of with an eye towards that transition into middle school, and that was sort of a determination to say, we know they're getting letter grades in high school. Let's give them practice with that in middle school. Similarly, we want to kind of help with that transition in 4th and 5th grade. We have sort of benchmarks, a variety of different content areas or skills that students would get sort of a 1, a 2, or a 3 in terms of kind of meeting expectations, exceeding expectations, or needing additional support. So that is something that they get practice with in 4th and 5th grade as well. But like Juna said, all the way through, it's not just you're getting an A in math. It's actually broken out by practices of an effective learner as well as the content. So you might be scoring in middle school, getting A's on all of your quizzes, but you're not turning in your homework. Your practices of an effective learner grade is going to be suffering. And then that allows us to have a conversation around what are those additional pieces that we need to support in that area.
We have a family association, which really supports that sort of engagement of families in the classroom and in school and beyond the classroom as well, and other opportunities to be together as a community of parents and a community of learners, right? Lifelong learners. So the family association has affinity groups as well, housed within sort of within the family association. We have room reps, which are parents that support each classroom individually. In many of the grades, families are invited to come into the classroom for different exhibits and exposés that we have throughout the year. In preschool, families are invited to come in and play for a couple hours with students, and that's a really nice opportunity for families to come in. There are grandparents and special friends day when grandparents and friends are invited to come onto campus and go into the classroom and enjoy that space. And then as Valentina and Zach alluded to, and when they were talking about things, we have many, many celebrations on campus where families are welcome to come to campus and enjoy in that way. I think you will find if you join the community that beyond those formal things that are in place, families are organizing lots of activities outside of school. There's giant group chats, which families are organizing, grade level camping trips and activities to go bowling together. So there's as much or as little engagement, I think, as one would like. And as a school, we try to support, that everybody finds the right fit for them as, how they want to engage with the community beyond just having your child here. So that's a lot of, working together and sort of negotiating like, how do you want to engage, beyond this? So
sounds good.
So there is a nap time for preschool 3. They go for a nap after they've had lunch, and then they have sort of a little bit of free play time for a few minutes to settle down, and then a little bit of a story time, and then they all lie down on their cots and they have a rest for about an hour. And that's, some children will sleep for 45 minutes, some will just lay calm. And then by the end of the year, we start to have students that don't want their nap anymore. And are really making that natural transition to not having a nap, because many of them are already ready for that, preschool 4 where we're not having a nap at all. So then they'll just have quiet time reading with some of the teachers. Hot lunch is served every day in preschool, Monday through Thursday. And then on Friday, it's also served lunch, but it's like a cold crudité and a little sandwich type of lunch, so more of like a picnic fun style on Fridays. And those lunches through the week vary. Sometimes it's, chicken teriyaki with rice. Other days it's a chicken tikka masala, might be a tofu green curry. So we're really encouraging kids to explore different kinds of foods. And then we have some classics, mac and cheese, potato and egg casserole, all kinds of things thrown in there. And the chef accommodates dietary needs. And that takes place at 12-ish every day is when lunch takes place for preschool 3 and preschool 4. And prior to that, in the morning, the day starts at 9. We have early care before that. And from about 9 to 12, students are cycling through free play, outside time, Spanish, health and wellness for preschool 4. There's art projects. There's circle time for both classes where they're talking together about what the day is going to be like, sharing their sound of the week, sharing their objects, maybe enjoying a story together that might inspire some further investigation and activities that students can opt in and out of. And then at the end of the day, twice a week, they have singing time with preschool 3, preschool 4, and kindergarten. And there's also library time mixed in throughout the week. There's time at the adventure playground with our STEAM instructor, Amy. So it's a really rich and varied schedule, but with lots of playtime inside and outside.
I think the first thing that I would say is, and that's really what we would call differentiation here. That happens in every class, in every area, all day long, by virtue of the small class size and the student-teacher ratio that we have. We really are able to really get to know each student and where they are and support them. In terms of additional kind of structural pieces that support that, we do have learning specialists on campus. We have a team of really 3 full-time learning specialists who work with the students, really starting in kindergarten. So that is kind of the next step that I would say in terms of beyond just whatever differentiation is happening in the classroom. Often that means, students who are coming a little bit more slowly into reading and benefit from additional support, they might be working with our learning specialists in some sort of academic area, something like that, in small group times. Those learning specialists also push into classes as well, so they're there for additional support and differentiation in the classroom as well. In terms of students who are looking for more challenge, I think that's the other piece with that project-based component. When I mentioned before that as the years go on, their students will say, okay, the teachers will say, here are the required elements. And then if you're looking for more challenge or looking for more extension, here are some additional pieces from there. But the program across the board is what we would we don't talk about it this way necessarily, but it's accelerated and challenging. It's a really rich program. And so, tends to be more a focus on kind of the additional supports for students when they need it. And we're often able to meet that kind of students looking for additional challenge in the classroom. Juna, anything you would want to add to
that? No, although I was just looking at the questions in the chat and there was a question about what differentiates us. And I'm going to piggyback on what Stuart said, is that the size of our school is fairly unique in the Bay Area. And because of that, our students are very known, not only by their teachers, but also by their classmates. We have middle schoolers who know the preschoolers. We have elementary school students who hang out with middle schools. I mean, they just all seem to know each other. And so that's, I just wanted to throw in there, that's, one of the differentiators that we have. And one of the memories that our students, our alums will often come back and talk about how they had these family groups or these cross-grade friendships that they don't find from their peers who have gone to other schools. So I just wanted to throw that in.
Extended day. So if school starts at 9, extended day begins for our students at 8 a.m. So for your preschool, they can come as early as 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. for extended care. Our staff who works within the classroom work with the kids directly in the extended day program to kind of build that familiarity. And then it also runs from after school till 6 p.m. And this is available for all of our grades, preschool through 8th grade. It's never full, which means if you have a late meeting or you're running late, there is always space for your child, and there's always a snack provided as long as they're in the extended day
every
program.
day, and you buy all 5 days of the week. It's the most economic way to consume extended day. But we offer 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, 4 day, 5 day options, and we also have specialty classes, usually around 3 specialty classes offered each day. That ranges from next semester we'll have Mandarin, tumbling, tree frog treks, Lego, skateboarding, chess, potions and science experiment class, building after school class. A general like sports gross motor movement class for younger students, wind instruments, violin, cello, so many things, such a rich variety of offerings. And those specialty classes are additional, and the prices range on those depending on the vendor. We have dance class as well. So, and I'm happy to share that. We can send that.
Okay, sounds good. Looking at the time, Stuart, Juna, and Laura, I want to send you off to get to wherever you need to be. Thank you for spending your morning with us. I'm going to stick around and present, but thank you, and have a good rest of your day. So there's a couple more ways to get to know our school a little better. Last 2 weeks ago, we hosted our curriculum open house for preschool and kindergarten. We actually recorded that, and that should be heading out in the next week or so in our newsletter. So if you missed that, basically it's a deep dive into our curriculum. You hear directly from our teachers. They're the ones that are kind of missing from this process as they're with the kids when we're doing the tours and the info sessions. So we had a really great presentation, virtual presentation that night from all of our teachers, kind of starting at preschool and kinder and a little bit beyond. And then we also got to hear from an alumni panel of our juniors and sophomores in high school. So it was a really rich program that we recorded that we can share out if you're interested. We also are hosting a culture and community open house. And that is also going to be a virtual event. And that's probably the best way to hear directly from our parents. You'll hear how to be involved. You'll hear from our family associations. We have a variety of affinity group leads that'll be there. You'll hear from our board members. It speaks to like our culture here at the San Francisco School and how important the parent role is and how important we want you to be involved in that. And that's going to be on Tuesday, December 10th. If you have not already visited our campus, we still have a couple of tours left, and that's probably the best way to see the campus while it's alive. You'll see children at play. You'll see children learning. You'll smell some food from the kitchen. You might catch a kid reading a book in a tree or playing a game. So it really is a great way to see our campus. And on our tours, we go from preschool and we even preview middle school. So you'll get to see some of our elementary classes as well as our middle school students in action. And then Saturday, December 14th is what we call an open campus. Right now, probably your kids have not been able to be on campus, but at this event, it is in person. Kids are welcome. It is a Saturday. We'll have the campus open from about 10 to 12, and you're free to walk around, go into classrooms, interact with a lot of the materials in the classroom, see our physical space, visit the adventure playground. So it's a great way to get your kid on campus to see how they interact with the space. It's a really nice event to have. And then lastly, if you would like to be in touch with one of our parent guardian ambassadors, we have a list of families that are waiting to chat with you as a prospective family, to give you their perspective or to answer questions. We'd be happy to connect you with one of those. So if you reach out to me, I can connect you directly to a parent guardian ambassador. So next steps in our application process, we are gearing towards the end of the year with tours and info sessions and open houses. As we talked about, applications are due January 6th. We are off school for about 2 weeks, so you probably can get in contact with us, but we accept applications on January 6th. There's no priority for sending them in early, although we do appreciate it. As long as you have them in by January 6th, you'll be considered for this upcoming school year. We also plan to conduct, if you do move on in the process, because we want to honor everybody's time, not everybody moves on in the process, but those who do, we conduct parent guardian interviews, And then we update your status at the end of January, and we plan to bring people in for interviews during January, actually. The next thing up is a student assessment. If we continue in the process and you've been granted a parent guardian interview, we will then have your child on campus for a student assessment. It really is closer to a play date. They come in on a Sunday morning. They have about an hour to interact with the space, other kids, and some of our preschool teachers. And that's it's just another data point for us to gather your child. At this point, we've only heard about your child through your words or their teacher's words. So it's a really fun morning to learn about the kids and have them interact with the space. And lastly, as I mentioned, we are working on sending out our December newsletter. So if you've signed up for an info session or a tour, we will be sending you information about things going on in the school. We will be sharing the recording of our curriculum open house, just a little way to stay connected with us. And then lastly, we will be sending out a survey just to kind of get your feedback. We're constantly changing our process and wanting to get better at what we do. So we really appreciate it if you answer the survey. It gives us perspective on how we did as a team and what we can do better. And then lastly, index tuition. And I know there was a question in the chat about index tuition, so I'll kind of speak to it and I'm happy to chat more about it. The San Francisco School is committed to creating a socioeconomic diverse community. We use a platform called Clarity, which is a third-party program which works in direct cooperation with our business office. For families who apply and qualify, they will receive a reduced tuition based on what their family can afford. It's on a sliding scale. This allows for increased accessibility for an independent school education in San Francisco. And you can find more information directly on our website. But I'm actually happy to connect with you directly. If you reach out to me, I can answer more questions specifically about our index tuition. And that concludes our presentation. And I know there were some more questions in the chat. So I'm happy to answer those. And if you have any additional ones once we get through, you're welcome to ask those as well. Kindergarten spots vary from year to year. As we talked about, our preschool 4 class typically moves up, and every year there is some type of attrition. So that varies from year to year, and it just depends on if people are moving away or they're applying for a public school. There's a lot of different things that kind of happen at the kindergarten level. We typically anticipate 2 to 4 spots, but we've also accepted more than 4 students on a given year. So it honestly just depends on when parents or what families stick around. We survey our current families in early January to see about re-enrollment. And then if they notify us that they're leaving, that lets us know how many additional spaces we have for a class. And typically for preschool 3 and preschool 4, our class size is a little smaller so that we anticipate a little growth and attrition for kindergarten, if that makes sense. So for those who are not familiar with the term SEL, it's social emotional learning. And that's a huge part of the curriculum in in preschool and kindergarten. They use Komochi dolls. They have classroom norms. Teachers are constantly talking to them about how to get through conflict. You may have heard in one of our presentations, we use what you call the peace process. And that's basically how students are learning how to work through conflict early on. So listening, communicating, calming their bodies before they speak. And this is more teacher guided to help them communicate. But as the years go on, it gets more advanced. Each classroom has classroom norms and expectations that the kids come up with. They do things like the kindness chain, where if you recognize something a student did that was thoughtful or sweet in your classroom and you want to acknowledge a peer, their name goes up on the kindness chain. And by the end of the year, that chain is going all the way around the room. There's constantly lessons on teaching our students how to be self-aware, how to communicate. We also use a term called zones of regulation. So we talk about the green zone, the yellow zone, the red zone. And that is the language that's used from preschool pretty much through elementary about how kids are regulating their bodies, how they're recognizing the changes in their bodies. and how they're able to communicate when they're upset for the needs that they might have, or when they're calm, or when they're back in the green zone. The answer is it is incorporated in just about anything. I used to teach health and wellness here, and there were tons of opportunities for problem solving, for social emotional learning, for working together, for being a part of a community. And our teachers are very intentional about those lessons. And our classes also have buddy classes. So our kindergartners are buddies with both the first graders and the third graders. And in those sessions that are scheduled time in the day, they work on certain social emotional skills. So it's very, very intentional. The teachers collaborate about how to plan for that. And our kids are very emotionally intelligent. I'm very appreciative that my child has language around things. But it's typically preschool 3 is where we have the most space initially, and those grades and those classes move up. We do have limited spots for preschool 4, as there is some attrition between preschool 3 and preschool 4. Same, we anticipate anywhere from 2 to 5 spots, but that also looks different as well. Just because the bulk of the kids are moving up. And then I kind of spoke to what kindergarten looks like in terms of moving from preschool 4 to kindergarten. So I would say preschool 3 is probably the biggest area where we add new students. We have reserved the block where our entrance is. We've painted it as the white zone, and that is called the carpool lane, which means our families kind of pull into that space. There are staff that are there to greet them every single morning, at least 3 staff members. They help them out of the car. Parents can stay in the car. We help them out of the car, help carry their backpacks or their sleeping mats in, and somebody walks them, one of the staff members walks them directly into their classroom. So you don't even have to get out of the car if you don't want to. You can pull through in the carpool line. You can't park there, but you can pull through, and there's typically an adult that's standing outside to meet them, a familiar face every morning, and it's usually the same person. You'll see Stuart, you'll see Juna, you'll see our middle school head out there. And those are the ones that are typically greeting our students every morning. And we usually have a pickup window for each. It's staggered. For preschool, it's 2:45, it's 3 to 3:15. For elementary, it's 3:15 to 3:30. And for middle school, it's 3:30 to 3:45. You can, of course, come at a different time. It's just more efficient to drive through that lane at that time. And same thing, a teacher or a staff member will walk them to the car door and put them in. For preschool, parents do put them into their car seats, but for every other grade, we put them in the car and send them off. Otherwise, you do have to find parking if you want to park and walk them into school. Most parents typically use the carpool line. We look forward to seeing you on campus at some of the events that I mentioned. And if you had any follow-up questions, I'll be sticking around. Otherwise, thank you for spending your morning with us. It means a lot that you made time to be here, and we're super excited to continue to learn more about your family and your child. I would say the early elementary years, like kindergarten to maybe 2nd grade, the homework is typically reading and practicing reading at home, reading to a parent reading to your child. In 3rd grade is where we introduce a little more structured homework. So you'll have a homework packet. So my son's in the 3rd grade, so he gets his new packet on Thursday, and then he has all the way to the following Wednesday to complete what's in the packet and kind of turn it in. And I would say so far, none of it is just like busy work, just memorizing facts. And if you went to school, when I went to school, it was like memorizing your times table. It's nothing like that. It's very intentional. It matches the skill they were practicing. It creates time for them to connect with family. And I would say it's not a ton of homework. He can sit down for 20 to 30 minutes in a window here and there and get it done. And then I would say in 4th and 5th, as we're preparing them to get to middle school, the homework bumps up a little bit more, but never are they assigned a homework assignment on Monday and it's due Tuesday. Typically, the teachers are trying to get them to map out their time. So if something is assigned on a Monday, it'll be turned in or due on a Thursday. And then in middle school, I would say it ramps up to like an hour of homework a night, maybe in 6th grade, about 70 minutes we anticipate in 7th grade, and like 80 minutes in 8th grade. And of course, it depends on the student. Some kids have more challenges, some kids have a busier schedule, but typically I would say very intentional in early elementary, and then third grade is a little more formal, if that's helpful. Or they'll be practicing like their math skills on Dreambox, which is an app that they use, or they'll be practicing typing or something. It's very intentional and it matches what they're doing in the classroom, not just busy work. Great question. We are very hard on the September 1st cutoff date as we align with a lot of the other independent schools here in the city. And that is specifically for preschool 3. If you're looking at preschool 4, there's a little more wiggle room, but preschool 3, we do ask that students are potty trained, and also 3 by September 1st. We would prefer for you to reserve on Ravenna. If you can't find it, I'm happy to sign you up. But also, if you don't sign up, still please come. We would love to host you. I mean, the campus will be open. We'll be here. And it's 2 hours of a window, so you don't need to get here right at 10. You have time to move through the campus as you choose. So I would say early on, it's introduced in areas of like, if it's a rainy day and it's too wet to go outside, they'll do a dance video in class to get a movement break. So something small like that. Our kids don't typically watch movies on a rainy day. That thing isn't really in. We'll find another activity for them. So there's not much exposure before second grade to technology in the classroom. I found that in like second, third grade, where my child is, they had intentional use of the iPads that are in the classroom for things like coding in STEAM. They were actually using that their iPads for coding. And when I say theirs, they're just in the classroom. So there's like second grade iPads or third grade iPads. They don't actually belong to a student. And then in third grade, they're practicing typing. So the iPads come with keyboards. So there's a little structure with that. Fourth and fifth grade, they have a little more use of it in the classroom with laptops and with iPads, and it's specifically guided lessons. So if they're filming something, if they're doing a podcast, if they are doing a presentation, a PowerPoint presentation, that is when it's introduced, typically for fourth and fifth grade. But they go through a whole digital citizenship training where they have to get their license. They have to make sure they're being responsible online as well as with the device. And then when they get to middle school, when they get to sixth grade, each of our students get a one-to-one iPad. We use a program called Google Classrooms where our students are really like in charge of their learning. They're communicating with their teachers. They are keeping up with assignments. They are doing a lot of their work on the iPads, and those go home and back to school with the students in sixth grade, and they sign these contracts to be really responsible for them. So it's very, very intentional. They have a skills class where they work on how they take care of those, how they store those, how they get those to and from school. So I would say it kind of slowly builds up, introduced in maybe second or third grade, specifically for STEAM or math. And then more towards fourth and fifth grade, they're using it a little more interactively with their learning. And then middle school, it is their own personal device. We are a smart device-free campus, which means our kids are not allowed to have cell phones while they're at school. So they come in the morning, there's a box that has your grade level on it, and you drop your device in there, you drop your smartwatch in there, and then at the end of the day, you pick them up from the front desk. And that's something we've been kind of doing for the last 10 years. So it's not something that's new for us, but we find that it's definitely less distracting to have cell phones tucked away during the day. And our students are so used to it, and it's actually been super effective. Okay, well, thank you for spending your morning with us. Please feel free to reach out if you have any follow-up questions. And I've written down a couple of names to reach out to with questions specifically. So enjoy the rest of your day. Look forward to seeing you soon. Take care.